Let's record. Vamos a grabar. Hola, bienvenidos y bienvenidas. ¿Cómo están todos?
Bien,
Bien.
bien.
Ay,
¿Están
no.
bien? Magnífico, magnífico. Bueno, es la primera clase del otoño. ¡Wow! La primera clase del otoño y vamos a escuchar mucho, ah, vamos a colaborar para desarrollar una idea nueva. We're going to have you do some uh, uh, icebreaker things to develop an idea. Oh dear, your package is on the table. Okay.
My
Uh,
my
eh,
my
yeah.
screen is kind of frozen. Um, I can see you and I see everybody moving, but nothing I touch works.
Oh dear.
And
Hear
I
you,
can't
Kara.
even I can't even leave the meeting and get back.
Dios mío. You can't
Escape.
even leave. Oh, well, if you
No,
leave, we'll know why.
it's
Usually that
very
works. Turn it off, turn it back on,
yeah, I
right?
was trying to reduce my name and it
There
won't
we
do
go.
it.
Okay.
It won't do it.
Suerte, suerte. Good luck. Okay.
I can't change the view.
Okay. Part of your assignment tonight is going to be there's only going to be a brief breakout. It's only going to be a 5-minute thing. And that's just going to be to kind of brainstorm to come up with some ideas that we can use later para que sepan, so you know. Um, but the big idea picture is going to be trying to get more comfortable with speaking and getting the right word to come out without having a, yeah, I know. Well, you know what? That's always our goal, right?
Mhm.
But why that is hard, and we're going to kind of revisit why that is hard in a lot of cases, and some things we might do to maybe help it be less hard, less difficult. Uh, so it's going to kind of hinge on the idea of some of that conjugation jitter that people get, the conjugation freeze, where it freezes your brain and you want to say something, but you can't come up with it, and some paths we might take to make that a little bit easier. Okay, vale. Y cortometrajes. Found
Wait,
a great cortometraje. Oh, it is fun. It is so fun. It will not be, it will feel a little bit challenging, but it is short and loads of fun. So you're going to enjoy that for homework for the week. Okay, a ver, vamos a empezar con un ejercicio de escuchar, y es como un ejercicio de calentar, it's a warm-up, ¿sí? Um, hmm, Ideas, ¿en qué debemos enfocarnos? What should we focus on? What we should focus on with this is just hearing the big idea. Uh, a lot of people, because it's a series of short interviews, a lot of people are just going to speak in phrases rather than whole sentences, because we all do that.
That's true.
Uh, they are going to sound like they're speaking fast because it's man on the street interviews. Okay. So some people who watched this morning mentioned, I'm going to go listen to that later this week again, because boy, it sounded fast. And then somebody said to me, does it sound fast to you? And I go, not so bad. But I think for me, it should be not so bad. For you guys to say kind of fast, well, todo normal, totally normal. But notice we're listening for the big ideas. That's why, por eso es ejercicio de calentar. That's why it's a warm up. We want you to get the main ideas. I do want you, when you go back and listen to it a second time sometime this week, to focus a little bit on where they do speak in full sentences. And when they do use a verb where I say, I think I kind of know that, but I don't really know what it is, how to get over that hurdle and approach listening for that and letting it roll over you and being okay with it. Okay, bien. Some little tips for that. And then we're going to dive into really how much do you have to know to get over that hump of speaking using verbs? Because there are some tips I was finding in the last couple of weeks that were kind of, I thought, insightful. Okay, bueno, el tema del primer video de esta noche. El tema es el turismo, pero el turismo, los efectos negativos del turismo. Digamos, los efectos negativos del turismo. Ah, cosas que, cosas que nos molestan del turismo. Ah, bueno, ok. ¿Y por qué? ¿Por qué es importante? Bueno, ah, por ejemplo, durante la pandemia, mucha gente se mudó a otros lugares, se mudó a lugares más exóticos, a lugares más bellos como lugares en México, lugares en Costa Rica, lugares con playas, wow, bueno, sí, Italia, España, lo que sea, whatever it might be. Ok, bien. Ah, y bueno, entonces, como nómadas de um, digitales, digital nomads, sí. Ah, pero cuando tenemos viajes con grupos grandes, cuando tenemos viajar y vivir en otro lugar, a veces siguen problemas, ¿sí? Y, por ejemplo, para alquilar un apartamento para el turismo, para vivir como nómada, ¿sí? Crea problemas, ¿sí? Hay gente en Ciudad de México, ah, la gente mexicana, las personas nativas de México que tienen problemas de encontrar una casa, un apartamento, un departamento que no cuesta una fortuna, ¿sí? Y es el resultado de turismo de mucha gente que ahora vive en otros lugares. Ok, una ciudad muy famosa que tiene este problema es Barcelona. Sí, como
Sí, claro.
todos sabemos, ¿sí? Y durante este verano, en particular, había eventos desagradables entre grupos de turistas y los nativos de Barcelona, ¿sí? Las personas con armas de agua, squirt guns, ¿sí? Sí, disparando, shooting, disparando a los turistas, cenando en un bar, en una cafetería, en un café, en un restaurante, y había conflictos, ¿sí? Ocurrieron muchos conflictos en las noticias aquí en Estados Unidos, sí, pero de conflictos entre turistas y los nativos de Barcelona. Y este video se trata de este tema. Así que es un poco interesante. Y donde vivimos nosotros, ah, también tenemos problemas con mucho turismo, ¿sí? Con las personas que visitan a nuestro estado. durante el invierno, durante el otoño, y la población, ¿sí? Aumenta, sube, ¿sí? Crece mucho ah, con las personas que no son nativas, no son personas nativas que vienen a visitar aquí a nuestro estado. Bueno, entonces vamos a empezar aquí. ¿Pueden ver la mujer en la vestida con flores? ¿Sí? ¿La
Sí,
pueden
sí,
ver? You can see her. ¿La
sí.
pueden ver? Ok.
Ujú.
Y van a hablar bastante rápidamente, así que tienen que ver. Sí, y hay subtítulos que van a ayudar. Y lo siento de
What's
esta
that?
etiqueta. I'm sorry about this tag. Ok. ah, Fíjense en el vocabulario. So notice the vocabulary. Fíjense en las ideas principales. Palabra por palabra. No, 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 no.
Ujú.
Bien. Aquí. Bueno. Ah,
Hola a todos. El turismo se ha convertido en un tema muy candente.
Candente. Qué buena palabra. Candente. Candente quiere decir burning. Como, y no es burning como un plato burning. No, un plato quemado. No, no es como quemar, burn. Un tema candente es como burning question.
Mm.
Sí. Ok. A ver.
Hola a
Qué
todos. El turismo se ha convertido en un tema muy candente
candente.
estas últimas semanas en Barcelona. Pero, ¿qué piensan los barceloneses? Vamos a averiguarlo. Yo te voy a decir una palabra y tú me dices qué asocias con ella, ¿vale? Turismo.
Barcelona.
¿Y cómo relacionas Barcelona y turismo?
Bueno, pues una ciudad que vive el turismo y que
Que vive el turismo, that lives tourism, pero no se dice así en inglés. Que vive el turismo, that lives off of tourism, ¿sí? Vive el turismo. I want you to listen for how vive is also used a little bit differently further down in the video. Vivir, qué verbo obvio. What an obvious verb. Vivir, to live. Pero aquí vive el turismo quiere decir live off of. Más allá, further down, vive is going to mean like experience something. Vivir is often used to say we experience something because when we experience an event, we're living through it,
Mm.
¿no? Así que el uso de vivir como equivalente a experience something, sí, esto sí pasa. Ok.
que últimamente además hay mucho ruido, ¿no? Sobre la turismofobia, ¿no? Aquí en Barcelona.
Sol,
¿Vale? ¿Y Barcelona y turismo?
poquito de caos. Dependiendo de la zona de Barcelona, por estas zonas, por ejemplo, está muy tranquilo, pero en el centro sí que hay mucha gente y es otra Barcelona, se transforma.
Cuando te digo la palabra turismo, ¿qué te viene a la cabeza?
Guiris.
Vale, ¿puedes explicar un poco qué es esto de los guiris?
Guiris. Y guiris en España es el equivalente a gringos.
Ah,
En México se dice gringo, ¿no? Y puede ser un estadounidense, puede ser otra persona, pero de otro país, un gringo, ¿no? En España hay otra palabra que no es gringo, es guiri. Y guiri indica la gente que viene a visitar como turista de otro país, de Francia, de Inglaterra, de Finlandia, de Suecia, de Suiza, lo que sea, ¿sí? Guiris. Y sí,
Sí, bueno, que básicamente tú vas paseando por la ciudad y poca gente te encuentras que sea de aquí.
very few people that you meet with are from here.
Mm.
Giri, ¿qué significa giri? ¿Sí? Gente que te encuentras que sea de aquí. Poca gente, few people. Poca gente te encuentras que sea de aquí.
Simplemente hay un montón de gente extranjera.
Gente extranjera, giri.
Oh.
¿Y Barcelona y turismo?
Lleno.
Demasiado concentrado.
Gente, muchedumbre.
¿Y turismo
Muchedumbre, crowds, mobs. Muchedumbre es como decir mobs.
y Barcelona?
Más gente, más muchedumbre.
Justo esa palabra acá
I want you to listen to this lady. See if you can guess where she is from. She is not a native of Spain, but Spanish is her first language.
es bastante polémica, siento, hoy en día. Yo como no soy turista porque estoy hace un tiempo ya viviendo acá, pero bueno, hoy día se nota mucho la cantidad de turismo y de
¿De dónde es ella?
De Argentina.
Es
Yeah.
Argentina.
Yeah.
Y va a ser más obvio que es Argentina más allá, further down the line, ¿sí? Será más obvio, más y más obvio en otra entrevista.
gente
Ok.
que viene a Barcelona.
Masivo.
¿Por qué te ha venido esta a la cabeza?
Bueno, porque es un tema un poco candente
Candente, it's a little hot button topic.
hoy en día.
¿Y Barcelona y turismo? ¿Qué relación crees que tiene?
Bueno, hay mucha polémica con este tema.
Y la palabra polémica. Polémica es controversy.
Mm.
¿Sí? Something that is again, es candente. It's a hot topic. Polémica es controversy.
Realmente es verdad que yo siendo de Barcelona también lo he notado, como que muchas experiencias de ocio también han subido a nivel de precio
Ha subido el nivel de precio. The level of prices has gone up.
por el turismo y a veces como hay un exceso, ¿no?
Últimamente o estas últimas semanas han salido como muchas noticias de que el turismo es un problema en Barcelona. ¿Crees que es así o qué problemas le ves?
No creo que sea así. Es como siempre hemos tenido mucho turismo. A ver, quizás si tuviéramos más de calidad y menos turismo de grupo, pero yo creo que es inevitable. Es que además vengo de Mallorca, que allí justamente sí que están muy quejosos.
A mí no.
Sí, y los grupos enormes. La última vez que yo fui a Barcelona, personalmente vi un crucero.
Mm.
Vi un crucero que entraba al puerto de Barcelona que, que lleva un montón de personas. Y después de llegar al puerto en Barcelona, este crucero enorme, gigantesco, ¿sí? Como 200, 300 personas
Oh, at least.
salieron de
Sí.
un crucero.
Al menos.
Pura verdad. No lo podía creer y podía ver la cola, la fila de gente, caminando, saliendo. Y todo solamente para hacer turismo. Ok.
No me parece un problema porque al final el turismo mueve la ciudad y como problema no, porque sinceramente bueno, yo vivía en Tenerife y allí sí que era un problema porque allí está lleno a punto de que no encuentras nadie nacional. Yo creo que bueno, aquí en Barcelona nos aportan de momento cosas buenas.
El turismo es necesario, por supuesto. Yo creo que la cuestión es de una manera poder regularlo o saber gestionar qué tipo de turismo es el que necesita o el que más conviene.
Sí, y van a escuchar la palabra regular. Hay que regularlo. You've got to regulate it, ¿sí? Tenemos que, las personas que son nativas de de Barcelona creen que el gobierno o los oficiales de la ciudad tienen que mantener orden, tienen que controlar la cantidad de personas que entran a la ciudad.
No, no lo creo. O sea, sí que es verdad que al final, como barcelonés, me encanta, o sea, es decir, nos encantaría que el turismo que tuviéramos aquí fuera pues de calidad, ¿no? O sea, al final un turismo que no molesta, que viene, que consume, que invierte en la ciudad y que nos aporta valor, ¿no?
O sea, no es un problema, pero si no lo regulan se va a convertir en un problema. O sea, hay zonas que la gente que vivimos en Barcelona ya no visitamos, ya no.
Hay lugares que no visitamos. There are places we don't visit. Y fíjense, sí, esta frase sí me encanta. Ya no ponemos los pies. We don't even set foot. Poner, to put something someplace. To place something. Set foot. Poner, to put, to place, to set. Ya no ponemos los pies. We don't even set foot in there.
No ponemos los pies.
Depende de dónde vives. Yo vivo en la zona alta, cerca de allí, y no hay problema.
Tal vez en estos barrios no tanto porque son más residenciales o no llega tanto turismo, pero tal vez vas a la Rambla y hoy día con, no sé, 40 grados de calor en agosto, está lleno, no se puede caminar.
Lleno. Full.
No se puede nada.
Bueno, tenemos que tener la infraestructura, yo entiendo, para el turismo, para poderlo tener bien a nivel de alojamiento, restaurantes. Claro, si vives en el centro puede ser un caos, ¿no? Como comentaba anteriormente, pero en principio creo que el turismo es positivo. O sea, España es un país de turismo.
Dices que hay algunas zonas, ¿no?, que ya no visitas tanto. Por ejemplo,
Las Ramblas, Plaza Cataluña, o sea, hace años te podías sentar en el Zurich, por decir alguno, ahora ya no pones los pies, o sea.
A veces llega un tipo de turismo que no es respetuoso con la ciudad, ¿no? Y
van a hablar del respeto, respetuoso, respectful. ¿Sí? A veces hay turistas que no demuestran respeto a los nativos que viven en la ciudad. A veces hay turistas que no respetan los lugares especiales, los lugares históricos dentro de una ciudad, ¿sí?
la propia persona local pues se siente como un poco invadida o que no se está cuidando suficientemente la ciudad, ¿no?
Mucha oferta de piso de alquiler se haya ido enfocado al turismo y por lo tanto esto ha hecho que la oferta del local pues haya disminuido, ¿no? Se ha focalizado mucho más y entonces esto hace que los precios suban un montón.
Sí que es verdad que vas a la Barceloneta de noche y a lo mejor es un desastre porque está lleno de botellones, tal.
No sé, están como las dos caras. A mí
estamos de dos caras. We are of two faces, meaning we have two different opinions that are clashing. Yeah, two opposite opinions. And she's going to talk about how she feels because she knows she's not from Barcelona. She does live there. Spanish is her first language. But when people talk about tourism, she realizes as a different accent, she's a target, potentially. And what she says about, yo no me siento local, I don't feel local.
Yo no me siento local, entonces a veces cuando dicen cosas maybe tipo de los turistas, de la gente que aumenta los alquileres, es como, me toca como una fibra media, tal vez.
Yeah, this touches a nerve in me because I think, are they talking about me? Oh.
Se están hablando un poco de mí, pero bueno, no sé.
¿Te duele un poquito?
Un poquito.
Does it hurt?
Sí. Pero me dicen, no, bueno, vos no sos turista. Vos...
Oh, no, wait, you're not a tourist. You're not. You speak the language. You're not a tourist.
Está bien, no pasa nada.
No pasa nada. No big deal. Yeah.
Entonces, Carla, ¿cómo podemos ser?
And here comes some shameless but okay self-promotion. So we're going to skip that and get back to the interviews. Okay, a ver. Y empieza
cajita de
aquí.
descripción.
Perfecto.
Cuando haces turismo, cuando tú eres la turista, ¿cómo sueles comportarte? ¿Qué intentas hacer?
And now they turn the tables on the interview. What about when you're a tourist? How do you try to behave?
Bueno, lo mismo que hacen todos los turistas. Si realmente yo creo que vas de vacaciones a un sitio y lo único que haces pues es intentar ver los monumentos históricos, cosas interesantes de esta ciudad e intentar comportarte lo máximo posible como la gente de allí.
No voy con un planning de tengo que visitar estos sitios. Por ejemplo, si voy a una ciudad como muy típica, como Roma, no he ido. Pero no iría al Coliseum.
Soy turista de ciudades, quizás, que lo que más me gusta es ciudades y ir pues en autobús, en bicicleta, intentar ir a lo típico y un poco a lo lejos, pero bueno, no lo sé.
Ay, yo creo que soy respetuosa. Yo no viajo con grupos muy grandes, nunca, pero creo que es también un poco cultural eso.
Bueno, mi marido, por ejemplo, es inglés. O sea, nosotros, Emily, por ejemplo, mi hija es un mix, ¿no? O sea, que el turismo para nosotros, claro, ya lo vivimos, ¿no?
And here's the experience thing. See, here's her use of vivir as, I'm going to try to back this up.
Claro, ya lo vivimos.
Ya lo vivimos. We already experienced it. So when we want to say, yeah, we live it, but that idea of experiencing uses the verb vivir. Ya lo vivimos. We already lived through it. Meaning experience it. If you live through something, vivir is the idea to use.
¿No? Tenemos aquí gente de fuera. No, intentamos vivir como un local. O sea, con niños, por ejemplo, alquilamos un piso, vivimos en el centro de la ciudad, vamos a los supermercados.
Sí, vivimos como un local, ¿sí? Vivimos en un Airbnb, sí, vivimos en un apartamento, sí, en un apartamento local con los nativos y queremos ir a los supermercados y cocinar un poquito y todo eso como la gente que vive en la ciudad.
Tenemos vida como gente de allí, ¿no?
Me gusta ir a la montaña durante el verano porque yo quiero escapar un poco las playas que están llenas, entonces me voy a la montaña generalmente.
Por supuesto, me gusta ser lo máximo respetuosa e incluso si tengo la oportunidad de poder hablar la lengua de ese país, pues también hacer el esfuerzo y
hace el esfuerzo. They make the effort to speak a little of the local language, which many people who visit them don't bother to do.
dirigirme con su lengua.
Informarme antes de ir, dónde tengo que ir y luego pues cuidar la ciudad pues como cuido o intento cuidar la que vivo.
Bueno, pues supongo que lo que haría cualquiera, ¿no? Ser lo más cívico posible, ¿no? Lo más limpio, molestar lo menos posible y disfrutar de esa ciudad o de esa experiencia, ¿no?
A una persona que viniese aquí a Barcelona de turismo, ¿qué consejo le darías para estar a gusto, ¿no? O no sé, para alejarse un poco de este conflicto que hay?
Bueno, yo le diría que disfrutara de la ciudad porque Barcelona es una ciudad súper bella y que tiene muchísimas cosas por ver, tanto a nivel de arquitectura, de arte, gastronómico, las playas también. Entonces, que disfrutara y que intentara pues en lo máximo, ¿no? que pudiera pues respetar la ciudad y a la vez también pues acercarse más a lo local, ¿no?
Yo siento un poco que se llega pensando como, es una ciudad de vacaciones, como piensan, Barcelona es muy como fiesta y playa, y la realidad es que acá viven, o sea, la mayoría de las personas son locales que tienen un trabajo.
No vayáis.
For everybody else, Barcelona is a party and beach place, but there are people who live here and have to work here. Así es.
A la Barceloneta, porque ya está masificadísima y llena de basura.
Que se comporten, que respeten pues esos ruidos, zonas, bueno, pues que se comporten como de una forma civilizada, que hay muchísima gente que viene y es fantástica y respetan todo, o sea,
tener en cuenta que hay gente que vive, ser respetuoso de los espacios, como si en tu país no tirás basura, no vengas acá y tires basura.
Es una ciudad increíble, entonces puedes visitar los clásicos, tomar el bus turístico, que es una buena cosa porque tú puedes descender y irte durante el día. Y no, ir a los mercados, ir a la playa, y no, hay muchas cosas que hacer aquí.
Y esto ha sido todo.
Ok, bien, bien. Ok, bueno.
I have a question.
Sí, dime.
When she said vivimos, meaning living through something, it was in the present tense. Wouldn't that have been in a different tense?
Ajá. Es posible, sí. Pero aquí en presente porque es un hábito. We experience this all the time. Es la idea.
Okay. So you
And
leave
that's,
it
this is very, very clever that you picked up on this, Pat, because it's one of the purposes, one of the uses of presente that we sometimes don't think about very much. But it's a very, very high frequency use of presente for that purpose. Not to talk about necessarily what is happening right now, but what in general terms happens for everybody. And that's the idea behind the vivimos there. Could it have been a past? Yes, it could have been. But they were talking about the here and now, what is happening now, but what is happening as a habitual thing. See?
Okay. Yeah.
Bien. So, I'm going to give you the link to that because a lot of people from my morning session had said, oh, you know, it's kind of interesting. I think I'm going to listen to this again. I'm going to catch a lot more things. I want you to notice a couple of things, and this is something we're going to actually work on, talk about a little first, brainstorm about a little next, and then see how this is a hump we can get over. I want to show you an example. This is for when you're listening to people. And I want you to watch the subtitles here. I can't get to the exact minute, but we're pretty close here.
Hacer el esfuerzo y dirigirme con su lengua.
Informarme antes de ir, dónde tengo que ir
And what we're looking for here is, can you get the big idea without looking at the English? Can you get the big idea even if you don't know the exact kind of verb she's going to use? And it's going to be after this
cuidar
later.
la ciudad pues como cuido o intento cuidar la que vivo.
Bueno, pues supongo que lo que haría cualquiera, ¿no? Ser lo más cívico posible, ¿no? Lo más limpio, molestar lo menos posible y disfrutar de esa ciudad o de esa experiencia, ¿no?
A una persona que viniese aquí a Barcelona de turismo.
Okay. Well, viniese. Wow, what is that? What is that? It kind of looks like maybe pretérito for venir, but it isn't exactly. That's not it. It is important that you pick up maybe, ooh, that comes from venir, and I may not know what time factor, what kind of tense it is, but she's talking about people coming in, and that's good enough. Yeah. We're looking at big ideas. We're going to see another verb thing she's going to drop next.
¿Qué consejo le darías para estar a gusto, no?
¿Qué consejo le darías? ¿Qué consejo que le darías? Consejo es advice. Think counsel. When somebody is a counselor, they're giving you advice, right? See? ¿Qué consejo? Yeah. What kind of advice? ¿Qué consejo le darías? Now, wait a minute. You may say darías. I don't know what tense that is. I'm now having a minor brain fart because she's talking so fast. Let it wash over. Let it wash over. What's the big idea she's talking about? Even if you don't know what tense darías is, you can see buried in here, buried in the middle, dar. So she's talking about
giving.
Giving.
Yeah.
And you say, oh, but Marilyn, that's not good enough because I know it's give, but it's conjugated and I don't know what that thing is. And why didn't she take off the AR from dar? And why is it doing that? What's darías? Okay, darías es condicional. It's conditional. I don't care that you know whether it is or is not conditional, but here's the big idea. If you can pick out just what verb that conjugation comes from, you don't know what time span it really fits into, but you know it's from dar. She's talking about giving. ¿Qué consejo le darías? The le is just to him or to her. What advice give? What advice give? And darías, it's got an S at the end, so it's probably a tú thing. Yes, it's a tú thing. What advice? And in this case, the darías means would you give? But you know that it's the would is not crucial to getting the big idea. Yeah. If you don't know that darías means would give, but it's talking about you give at some time. For just getting the big picture, that's good enough. Okay. So when we listen, sometimes you need to let it wash over and you can just roll with the idea of giving advice, advice to people. Okay. That is good enough for getting the main ideas when you listen to movies, TVs, podcasts, whatever, and work that listening comprehension. Sometimes you have to settle for it's good enough. In this case, they give you both, so it's a big, big help. Sí, Esteban.
Una pregunta. Estar a gusto. Now, I didn't get that. I put it to be me gusta. For me to be for them to like is how I would my mind. I've never heard estar a gusto.
Sí, estar a gusto is put them at ease. Kind of like saying put them at ease. See? Yeah, estar a gusto, to be in that state of gusto, pleasure.
Nice.
Yeah. Feeling easy about it.
They wouldn't use the word for pleasure.
Placer.
Sí.
Sería posible. Yeah, you could combine a couple. Yeah, you could combine a verb phrase a little bit differently to come out with that. Yeah. Is there always only one way to say something? No. People will combine things as they see. Estar a gusto, aquí como set people at ease.
I'm looking at my dictionary, gustar, to be pleasing, to like. So está a gusto, sí.
Sí. Así es. Okay. So what we're going to do is, what I want to use this is as a stepping stone to help us over a hump that most of us have, and it is a normal hump for us to get over, and to tell ourselves it is okay to be a little uncomfortable getting over this hump. Okay. What normally does happen is that people say, well, I can pick up some of these things when I listen, but now I got to say something. Shoot. And now I got to talk, and my tongue is doing the blah, blah, blah thing. Yeah. And now I'm thinking about, and now I am nervous. Estoy nerviosa. Dios mío. Now I am nervous, and I kind of know how to cobble together some words, but I will sound stupid and blah, blah, blah. And even when you get to a verb as simple as estar, sometimes you say, oh, wait, now, and your brain does that pause thing, and therefore your tongue does that pause thing, because now you are thinking about, what form of estar do I use? I was happy. I am happy. I want to be happy. I will be happy. Yeah. And when we think really hard, and that makes us pause, and then our gears kind of get to the crunch part. Okay. So this is kind of what we want to do, is get over that crunch. Yeah. So the bad news is we have, because in English, we have fewer conjugations in English, and in Spanish, we have lots more. This causes us to get all pumped up, the knot in your gut to talk. I am going to give you a link, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and why it is challenging and maybe some ways to get over that. And we're going to ask you to help customize the ways to get over it in smaller groups later on. I am not going to play it now because this is a 20-minute video, but this is something to watch only if you are a grammar nerd and your brain really loves that structure, okay? And if it's not, don't watch the video, but I'll show you a set of notes that come from this video. Ocho tiempos verbales. If you went through all the conjugations of all the different conjugations any single verb can have, I think you come out to something like 16 verb tenses. Oh, please. I had to memorize those dreaded tables, the tables. Good God. And I had to memorize them or else. And, but sometimes that's not a great idea to memorize every verb table there is. Sometimes. But it's good to get an idea. We're going to look at the visual. I'm going to send you a link to this as well. Look at all these things. Modo indicativo, indicative mode. Voy a engrandecerlo un poquito. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Oh, this will make your brain hurt. So we want to not make our brains hurt. Yeah. Indicative mode. Then that's not even a tense, that's the mood thing. Yeah, right? And we got presente, present. We've got imperfecto, copretérito. What the blankety blank is that? You know what? You don't care. Okay, and you shouldn't. Pretérito simple, just plain old preterite. That you care about, yeah. And look at all those names for preterite. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 words to say it's past tense. Come on. Yeah. Don't worry about the grammar terms. But the idea is look at how many tenses. This is why it is so intimidating to us. Pretérito perfecto compuesto, that compound tense, have seen, has traveled. Yeah, that combining two verbs. Okay. A little less common sometimes in Latin America, but but still used. Okay. And look at all these tenses. It's enough to make your brain want to explode. Futuro simple, futuro perfecto, condicio. You know what? You don't need to know all of those. And then subjunctive. Look at all those, all those in subjunctive. Please don't. Future in subjunctive. You know what? Almost hardly. Don't even bother. I don't even know all of those because they don't use them because nobody else does either. Unless, they're in a specific setting. I mean, I know it when I hear it, but I don't use it. Okay. Imperativo. Okay. Commands. Yeah, you use commands. All right. How many of these do you really need? Well, the long story is it's good to know what their jobs are. And this chart is going to talk about what their uses are. That's what her video, which is longer, does talk about. But the idea is that these verb tenses exist to place an action either in the past, in the here and now, or somewhere in the future. That's the job of these modos verbales, tiempos verbales. That's their job. Okay. So we're just going to highlight some of these. You can look at it more in depth later. Indicativo. Indicativo has the word indicate in it, and this is how you should think of indicativo. Indicativo, really compared to subjuntivo, indicative indicates, it says that something is for real. Yeah. It points something out that is real. It might be real now. It might be real in the past. It might be real in the future. Okay. Subjunctive is not necessarily real. And this is the one that really, really hurts the brain, but it talks about desires and wishes and things that might be true or potentially could be true, but not happening right now. Not happening for sure right now. That's what subjunctive means, yeah? Imperativo just means somebody giving an order, telling somebody what to do. Okay, let's take a look. She's going to have these examples, and these are going to look familiar. Presente. What's the job of presente? There are 3 jobs actually that presente can have. She talks a little bit about that in the video, okay? Presente lo usamos para describir acciones habituales. Present tense we think of it's happening right now. Yes, that's true. And that's one job of presente, present. But there's another job that presente has, and that is acciones habituales. Things that are habitual, things that talk about what is part of our everyday routine. For real, not hypothetical. Things we do every day. Llevo a mis hijos al colegio. Llevo a mis hijos al colegio. I take my kids to school. Could mean llevo, presente, plain old present tense, very vanilla kind of flavored verb. Llevo a mis hijos al colegio can mean I'm taking them right now, but it can mean that number 2 context use of I do it all the time. Llevo a mis hijos al colegio todos los días. Meaning I'm not doing it maybe right now, but I habitually do it all the time. It's a part of my routine. La rutina, sí, es parte del presente. That's part. And actually, there's a 3rd job that presente can do too. One thing to think about a little bit, I don't think she talks about it in these directions, is that presente can sometimes be used to talk about very near future without using voy a caminar, sí, futuro, pero camino en el parque can, in some contexts, mean I'll be doing that soon. So just keep in mind, presente, why do we use it? What's the context of use? To talk about what is actually happening right now, to talk about what one usually does as a part of your regular routine every day, all the time. It's for real. It's not theoretical. And sometimes we use it for very near future, right? But you have to kind of know if it means future from the context of everything else in the sentence. Okay. Okay. A ver. So we've got those. Pretérito. Ok, vale. Ejemplos aquí. Hablé, comí, viví, hablaste, comiste, viviste. Normal, fácil, fácil. Ok, pero pretérito, this has a very set use. Fewer reasons than presente. The context is always, did it, over, done, not happening right now. It's done. It's over. Ok, a ver. Fácil, fácil. Pretérito imperfecto. Oh, sí, sí, sí. Estaba, tenía, vivía. Estabas, tenías, vivía. All the endings are the easiest tense in Spanish, imperfecto, but hard to distinguish between when do I use imperfecto and when do I use pretérito. Pretérito is over and done. Please, past tense, isn't it all over and done? Yeah, but okay, so entonces, sí, imperfecto, things that are repeated or habitual actions, but not now and in the future, but in the past, right? What you used to do, also for descriptions in the past. Also, when you use imperfecto, which is easy because everything ends in a form of ara, if it's AR, or a form of ia, if it's ER, verbs. Imperfecto also, when you use it, people are kind of hanging on your narrative to say, and what comes next? Yeah. Viajé a Alemania. I traveled to Germany. Just done. Pero viajaba viajaba a Alemania y durante el vuelo algo pasó. Yeah? Viajaba means I was traveling. And then, they're listening for, I expect something else to be happening to interrupt this. So when you choose to use just viajaba instead of viajé, they're thinking, oh, there's more to this story. Something happened in the middle of viajaba while I was traveling. Okay, bien. Vale. And they talk about this, all the descriptions and telling time and people involved in the action. Oh, feelings. Feelings are descriptions. So feelings, that's going to be imperfecto. Okay, bien. Oh, this thing here, which we don't focus on as much. They use it less in Latin America than they do in Spain. In Spain, all the time, every day, because anything that happened within the context of today, this is what they'll use in Spain. But Latin Americans say, we don't care about this as much. Okay. And actually, this is a very easy conjugation to make because the only thing you're conjugating is haber, has, hemos, habéis. And habéis, you're probably not going to use unless you're in Spain, right? Has, hemos. The have and has words. And that's all that gets conjugated. And these other things are the second part of the verb phrase. And they're not technically conjugations, they're past participles, but they always stay that same thing, no matter if it's yo, tú, nosotros. He comprado, he comido, he vivido. Hemos comprado, hemos comido, hemos vivido. Spaniards use this to talk about just today, or just this morning, or just this afternoon. And when it moves into the yesterday time period, they say, oh, we're going to ditch this and we're going to go back to pretérito simple. Yeah. So Spaniards switch between those two to talk about the past. Latin Americans say, we're not going to bother with this he comprado thing that much. We're going to just always use this pretérito simple. Now, not to say there are times when, even in Latin America, this comes up. And this, what's the context? What's the reason for using he comprado, hemos comido, han vivido? What's the context? The context is the have you ever. So in Latin America, yes, they will use it, but more for the have you ever done it? Or have you done it and maybe it will happen again? He viajado a Alemania. I have traveled to Germany, and it could happen again. So that's the reason there. You'll see it also more in writing. Okay, so is this for those of you who travel anywhere on this side of the Atlantic? Is this as important, as frequent as this?
No.
Not as frequent. Can you live without that and you have to learn to live more with this? Sí, claro. Okay. So what we're trying to make you think about is, which tenses are more frequent, more important, happen a lot more, and therefore I want to focus on those more. Okay, let's go back. We're going to check out one more thing. Una cosita más. Dos. Mentí, les mentí. I lied to you. Yeah, two more things. Futuro, future. Can you live without that? Do you need to memorize everything in futuro? No, you do not. Because chit-chatting, people will think, why so formal if you use this? Do you need to have a brain fart pause to think about how do I conjugate future? No. Is it a waste of your time? Often. It's good to know, but it's not essential. So we're going to pass over that because everybody's going to use voy. Everybody's going to use voy a hablar, voy a comer, vamos a vivir. That's what they're going to use. And will you hear this future? Sometimes, but not a ton. So don't worry about it. Condicional. This one is interesting. And you heard at least two, probably more, but at least two really big examples of condicional. And this is one that a lot of people are like, wow, do I have to know this? Well, to survive, for survival skills, you can live without it a lot, but what is its job? The job of, first of all, the formation of conditional is not hard because we take endings that look like they're imperfecto for ER and IRs, the ia endings, yeah? Ia, ias, ia, íamos, ian. Wow, that looks just like comía. But the difference is you keep the whole infinitive. Okay. Comería, viviría, amaría. Okay. And why would I bother with condicional? Well, there are a couple of things, and you may not need to speak using it all the time, but you'll probably hear it. Okay. Vamos a ver. Lo usamos para pedir algo de una forma respetuosa. We use it. What's the context? Why do I need this condicional? The why of using it is to ask for something in a respectful way, to ask in a very polite, more formal kind of way. Okay. Expresar sugerencias, to express suggestions. Dar consejos, to give advice. Establecer preferencias, establish preferences. Let's see in context sentences that you would hear in everyday conversation that would be a normal conversation. Me pasarías, me pasarías, and I'm not quite sure why they have a pasarme, la sal. Me pasarías la sal. Would you pass me the salt? I'm not sure why the pasarme is there. If you want to say, could you pass me the salt? Could you show me something? Could you give me directions? This is the could you kind of tense. So it might be helpful if you're asking for directions. See? Okay. A ver. Podríamos ir a la playa de Carmen en el verano. We could go. We hypothetically. This is used for hypotheticals. In that sense, it might not be super useful for you, but to ask super politely, it could be useful to you. Also, to say that I would like something, to express what you want. It does it in a way that is not pushy and does not feel forceful to them. So there's a cultural element to this. Preferiría sentarme en la ventanilla en el avión, por favor. I would prefer to sit in the window seat. Okay? I would prefer. You're expressing your desires, but in a very polite, somewhat more formal way. So, condicional might be useful, but for absolutely must have, get along, a lot of times you're not going to need it. Okay. So I'm going to pass you that whole thing. Subjuntivo, actually, I think that's kind of good to know, but it's a struggle for a lot of people. It's kind of another can of worms. But subjunctive, she does talk about kind of at length too. It talks about the subjunctive is a mood, not strictly speaking a tense, and that mood talks about actions that could possibly happen, may happen, might happen, but aren't really happening in real life at this time. Okay, so subjunctive is kind of another can of worms for another day. But the upshot is that you got a whole lot of tenses, and this is where your brain starts to do massive brain farting of, I want to say something, but which tense do I use? Aha, but we've got a way to get over that. And here's what we're going to get over that with. How many tenses do you have to know so that it can come out of your mouth? Do I have to study all of that? No, you don't have to study all of that. But I'm going to show you an example, and I am stealing an idea. I am massively stealing an idea from a guy who did a video on this, just kind of a complex video. And that is, depending on what the verb is and what the verb means, there might only be a few tenses you really need to let it roll off your tongue so that you don't have to pause and think all the time. There might be, or better yet, there might be a smaller number of conjugations that you really, really have to memorize for it to come out of your mouth easily. Some verbs have a ton of tenses that you really should know. Some have only a few. We're going to check that out. So in other words, not worth it to study every table in the world. Here's why you do need to know a bunch or why you don't need to know a bunch. Let's look at just the verb estar. How many tenses you need to know depends on what that verb is and what that verb means, because some verbs are only used in a much more limited context, and others are used all the time. Here is one that is used all the time, estar. And here is a verb that you should know in a bunch of different tenses. But my suggestion to you is going to be, always know the yo form. And maybe the nosotros form. Because often when we travel, we're talking about me or whoever I'm traveling with, a we group. Okay, to prevent some of the brain fart thing. Oh, estar will cause some brain farting though. Do you need to know all the forms of estar en presente?
Yes.
Sí, esencial. Okay, estar is going to be a verb that is not only a high frequency verb, but is used in a lot of different tenses. So always know the yo form for many tenses. Which ones? Presente, sí. Imperfecto, sí. A lot of times. High frequency when we talk in the past. Am in a place, presente. Was in a place. Often winds up being imperfecto. Talking about I was happy always winds up being imperfecto. So always know at least the yo form for estar in imperfecto, high frequency, used all the time. Pretérito, depende. I would bump that down a level. Not as often heard as estaba, but yeah, you hear it. Estuve. Okay, so pretérito a little bit. Subjuntivo. Yeah, you're going to hear subjuntivo. Probably not as much as these two. So there are tiers of frequency. Yeah. Some conjugations are used and heard a lot more than other tenses are heard. These two, maybe not quite as much. Estuviera, not as much, but you know, that past subjunctive, you might hear it once in a while. Hey, once you move into this idea of futuro, estaré, estarás, you don't need to know that. You're going to hardly ever hear it. Don't spend your time on stuff you're not going to use. Don't memorize tables and tables and tables. Okay, so estar is not only a high frequency verb, but it's used in there are a number of tenses you should know for that verb estar, because you will hear it in more than one tense. Let's look at a different verb. Significar, to mean, to signify. Do you think you need to, es obvio. Do you need to know tables and tables of six? No. When's the only time I kid you not, when's the only time you're going to hear or use this?
What does this mean?
When you want to ask, what does this mean? ¿Qué significa celular? ¿Qué significa lentes? ¿Qué significa cuchara? O cuchara, perdón, tenedor. Tenedor. ¿Qué significa tenedor? Okay. ¿Qué significa tenedor? That is the only way you're ever going to use that verb. You would never need to know future, past, imperfect. You don't need that. In this verb, you need that one conjugation, and that's it, baby. And you're like, if you hear it in a different conjugation, it's going to be so far flung and odd. So you don't spend time on that. So what we want to do is spend time on verbs that matter. There's a guy who actually has compiled a list that is color coded. I'm going to give you a link for it in case you have an interest in it. He does ask for a little donation, a $10 donation for it. And the only reason I am not passing it on to use it as a 50-page document. And you know what? Yes. But he does color code. Here are verbs that are like, estar. The darker the verb is, you should know this one. If it's a light color, don't bother. You're not going to hear it a lot. Yeah. Vale la pena. It might be worth the effort. You might have an interest in it. Okay. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of create something as an example of our own for free. This is going to be your 5-minute thing. I'm going to send you out for 5 minutes. I want you to come up in your group with between 5 and 10 verbs that you think you might need to know more than one tense that can roll off your tongue without having the brain fart. And we're going to compile from your list, personalized. We're going to compile a spreadsheet for next week out of that. And you're going to see that some verbs are going to wind up being like significa. And some verbs are going to be like estar, lots and lots that you should know at least the yo form. Other verbs, I just need to know this one form. So I'm going to send you out and I want you to brainstorm for 5 minutes. Nada más, nothing more than that. Just come up with a list of infinitives of things you think you need for daily conversation that you would like to roll off your tongue more easily without stopping and thinking. ¿Sí? ¿Bien?
Sí.
Okay. Vale. I'm going to add one more room. A ver. Bien. Okay. A ver. So hit the join button. I'm going to really strictly time this 10 minutes only or 5 minutes only. 5 minutes only. You're just coming up with a list of verbs. Oh, sí. Bien. Vale. Mi cronómetro. I need to find my timer. Nada más que 5 minutos. Nothing more than 5 minutes. We want a down and dirty list. Yes, it's ticking. Okay. ¿Por qué vamos a tener una lista? Why are we going to have a list? Well, we're going to have a list because depending on who you are, what you use Spanish for, the list may be different for different people. Yeah. If you speak with people who do construction work for you and you want to chit chat with them, you may talk about certain kinds of activities. If you talk a lot with some gals who come to do cleaning in your office or your house, you might need to talk about different kinds of activities. If you're going out and doing the classic turista things, there are going to be certain verbs you need all the time for travel. Family member married into a Hispanic family. You're having the in-laws over for dinner, holiday get-together. It may be kind of varied. Yeah, you need more social fun. kind of verbs to talk about. So we want to pick some things that you're actually going to use depending on the situation you are in personally and say, hey, which high frequency uses of these verbs should I know at least that yo form so that it can pop off my tongue quickly and prioritize that so that we are spending time on using conjugations that are of use rather than just a chart that has limited use. Bien? Okay. Y 2 minutos más. 2 minutos más. Got a little list here that we're going to compile. Dentro de poco nos queda un minuto y medio, ¿sí? Y vamos a ver. Okay, we're going to call people back. I think people are going to be ready very quickly. Zoom gives you 1 minute to wrap up, tie up loose ends. I don't think it's going to take a full minute for most folks to come back, but hey, you never know. Nunca se sabe. Nunca se sabe. Wow, las personas se están comunicándose. Wow, people are still thinking about that. I'm surprised they're not back. Esto me sorprende. A ver. Ok. Bien, aquí vienen. Here comes everybody. Yay! Magnifico. Brainstorming. We just want infinitives. Don't worry about all the conjugations yet. We'll talk about those in a bit, and that's going to carry over into next week, but we're going to start it today. ¿Cuáles son los infinitivos más importantes para comunicar una idea? Just shout it out. Esteban, sí.
Tener.
Tener.
Ser. Estar.
Perdón, tener.
Tener es un verbo. Estar y ser también.
Estar y ser también. Ser, sí, muy lógico, muy lógico. And we're not going to put estar in there only because we already took a look at it up here, but sí, está bien, sí. Tener un verbo básico, muy básico. Ser también básico para identificar las cosas. Sí, bien. Bueno, otro ejemplo.
Here. Here.
Ir. Sí. Muy frecuente, ir, y muy irregular, very irregular verb. Wow. Do you think that one's going to have a lot of tenses you should know?
Oh,
Of
yeah.
course.
You can already
All
start
over
to
the place.
guess.
Por supuesto.
Y por supuesto. Bueno,
supuesto.
otro verbo, ir.
Decir.
Decir.
All right.
Muy común, muy frecuente. Claro, estoy de acuerdo, sí.
Querer.
Ver.
Ver.
Ver, sí, también. Watch. Watch TV, watch a movie, watch a show. Claro, sí, see something. Poder. Sí, poder. Sí, esencial, esencial. Poder. Bueno, ¿qué más?
Querer. Querer. To want.
Querer. Exacto. Bien.
Hablar.
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 Obvio.
Dar.
Dar. Sí, dar. Give. Guy, sí. También muy irregular. Un verbo cortito, cortito, pero importante. Bueno,
Hacer.
Llevar.
llevar,
Oh, that's a good one.
take along something, take
Right.
somebody, someplace. Uy, sí.
Venir.
Venir.
To come.
Oh, venir,
Venir.
venir. Bien, sí.
Hacer. Hacer.
Hacer. To do. Sí, 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 sí. Bueno, ¿cuántos verbos tenemos? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Ok, ¿hay más? ¿Hay más? More? We want your whole
Llegar.
list. Quedar.
Llegar.
Llegar.
Llegar
Llegar.
and quedar, both of them.
Y quizás quedar, sí, sí, quizás quedar, sí.
I have so many.
Llegar, arrive, sí, para la persona que viaja mucho, que es turista, durante las vacaciones, llegar sí es muy importante porque llegamos usamos llegar con horarios, schedule, con trenes, con el metro, con aviones, todo eso. Bien, hay otro verbo.
Well, I guess then you ought to put salir.
Perdón,
I guess you ought to put salir if you're going to use llegar. Salir.
salir. Sí, quizás salir. Vale la pena, sí, saber varias formas de salir. Bueno,
Poner. Poner.
poner, bueno, sí. Bueno, Janet,
Traer.
otra vez.
Traer.
Caer. Sí, a veces sí.
Sí, pero
Sí,
llevar, traer.
Traer.
No, traer.
Traer para viajar, sí, muy importante.
Saber.
Traer, muy importante, sobre todo
Saber y conocer.
saber conocer, como los dos juntos, sí, to know, kind of verbs. Ok, bueno, vamos a empezar. What we're going to do, and I'm going to we're going to kind of play with this a little bit so you can see the direction we're going to go. But eventually I'm going to take these and fit them into kind of a spreadsheet thing. But instead of looking like a massive verb chart out of the 501 Spanish verbs, which
isn't even all there are.
Just shoot me now that I got to know all these. Yeah. But we're going to see, because depending on what the verb means, for some of them, if my goal is, I always want to know the yo form, how many of those tenses should I really commit to memory so that it can flow off my tongue easily? Okay, tener. Las formas para yo. We're just looking at the yo form, ¿sí? Tengo. Obvio. Obvio. What do you think is going to be the next most frequently form of tener, but frequently used tense?
Tenía.
Yeah.
Tenía.
Imperfecto.
Tenía. Had. High on the list. Tenía memorizar. Sí, hay que memorizar tenía. Tenía should roll off your tongue. How about this puppy? Tuve.
Yeah.
So más o menos.
Más o menos. Do you hear tuve as much as you need to use tenía?
No.
No. Kind of not even close, really.
And if you said tenía when you should have said tuve, they would still understand you, right?
Sí, tuve es importante. Knowing that tuve is that pretérito past is important. Will you hear it? Yes, you will hear it. You will probably hear it less frequently than you hear tenía. So in other words, there is a way we prioritize which things do we hear more than other. And and the tenses that we hear more, we give a higher priority for. You know what? I ought to be able to memorize, yes, memorize this one yo form so that it can roll off your tongue. Vamos a ver. Let's take a look.
Tendría?
Do you need that future of tener?
No.
Low
No.
frequency.
Voy
So,
a, yeah.
you know what? Wipe it off the chart.
Pero como tendría?
Perdón.
¿Cómo tendría?
Oh, tendría, that I would say might be a little more, that condicional would have, you might hear that more. I'm going to inject in here something in between tenía and tuve, which I think you're going to hear and need to use a lot.
Tenga.
Tenga. This is that stinky subjuntivo thing. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I would say you're going to tenga about as much as you hear, or about as frequently as you hear tenía. Tenga. Que tengas buen día.
Sí.
Que tengas buen día. As simple as walking out of a store and somebody saying that to you. Que tengas buen día. Yeah. This is a high frequency verb. Do you need to memorize every single form? That probably not, but that tenga one you should know. Yeah. And you know what? You're probably going to hear that tenga in everyday conversation more than you hear tuve. I'll bet tendría, maybe. Let's take a look at one more. Tuviera. Maybe. Is it essential though?
Oh.
Janet, pregunta.
But I thought with tenga, then 10. For the two form.
Tú, sí, la forma de tú, sí.
Excellent.
Ten, importante. Como mandato, as a command. Ten cuidado, be careful. Muy común, ten cuidado. Yeah, that subjunctive and commands are kind of linked. They're kind of in a family in a way, but the ten is really a true command, yeah? Whereas tenga is more of a subjunctive kind of thing. May you have a good day, as opposed to be careful, ten cuidado. Okay, a ver, tendría you may use. So you know what? Tener is going to need a lot of different, is going to be a high frequency. You should know a number of tenses, but here are the ones that you're probably going to hear more, and the ones you should be able to say more quickly. And the other ones, lower priority. But these in speaking are going to come up a lot. Ser, there are going to be a bunch of things on this list. Soy, obvio, sí, soy. Ooh, ¿cómo se dice I was, or he was, or it was, it
Fue.
was so pretty. It was so pretty, that
Fue.
place we went to.
Era.
Era.
Oh.
There's probably your second most important one, because when we describe things, you're going to hear era. You might hear fue or fui. I could put it in the yo form, but those three you're going to hear a lot. Soy, era, fue, or fui. You'll hear it not so much for fui, I think, more for fue. It was. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay, you might hear sería. Sería posible? Would it be possible? Maybe conditional, but that goes like way down the list. Not as important as these. Subjunctive, maybe, but here are your real crucial ones that you should know at least one form of. Yeah. And ir is going to be like that. It's going to have a whole bunch. It's going to have a whole bunch. And then we're going to look at the one underneath that real quickly. So ir, okay. Voy, obvio. Fui, pero sí, fui. Went, very simply went to a place, sí. Used to go or was going to. You know what? Actually, that's lower frequency than fui. Depende. Of course, it always depends. But if you had to say, like, how often do you hear fui versus iba? Everyday routine conversation, probably fui more. Yeah. See? The subjunctive, vaya. You hear it a lot. Yeah, see. Okay. You heard in the actual Barcelona video, you heard him use iría, would go, but is that like as high frequency? No. So I'm not going to tell you it's not important, but what we're saying in terms of priorities, it's down the list. So do you need to absolutely memorize that? No. But these two, you really should memorize. Decir, let's take a quick look at decir, and then we're going to move on. I'm going to show you what we're going to plan for next week. Decir, digo, obvio, obvio, obvio. Dije, I said, I told. Frecuente, frequent. Sí. I would say the next most frequent is probably this subjunctive thing.
Yeah, dígame, or yeah.
Yeah.
Or di.
You might say, well, it's easy to say, I know how to use decir with imperfecto, but decía is really not as high frequency use as this. Because of the nature of that verb. The nature of that verb is something that happens, and it's an action that happens fast.
How about dice? So she'll say, ¿Cómo se dice?
Oh, ¿cómo se dice? Well, this verb, sí, se dice. Yeah. It's not the yo form, but yeah, you hear this, ¿cómo se dice?
Yeah,
How do you say?
You need that one, yeah.
And that's just, a word combo that you should know. Yeah, that's a high frequency. I would say you're right about that. But you know what? This one, even though even though it's easy to form, you will not hear it as much as these. So even though this is imperfecto, a very easy one to form, it's kind of down the priority list. Yeah.
Is the conditional used a lot, diría?
Well, quizás, maybe, but I would say at a higher level,
Pero normal.
¿Qué le dirías? What would you tell him? If you're going for quick, what's more common? Tell me how to get to this building.
Dígame, por favor,
What would you tell? If you had the opportunity to. this tell is going to be
Mhm.
happening way more.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, also the two form dime.
Dime, también, sí, commands. Yeah,
Mhm.
diga can be a command, and di is just a different form of a command. Dime, tell me.
Yeah.
So there are certain combinations of decir that are more useful than others. Those are uses to the left are way more useful than this diría conditional thing. Way more useful. Yeah. So you want to keep our limited gray space in the old brain, working on the stuff that's important. So what I'm going to do is work through and cobble these into a great big old spreadsheet thing. And we're going to look at which of these you really should commit to memory that you should be able to have roll off your tongue because you use them a lot. And we use them a lot in different situations. And actually, it's good that you brought up things like se, dice, and dime, because those kind of things that combine another little pronoun, those are chunks that hang together, and those are important to know. I'll figure a way to fit those in on a kind of a frequency spreadsheet. So I'm going to my job is going to be to work all those into a format that'll make sense. And these are some things that because they're super common and because you use them a lot to talk and communicate with people, worth the effort to actually memorize those so they can roll off your tongue. A ver, see? I'm going to send you the video of and the link to the chart if you're interested in actually purchasing something from a gentleman who did a job on that. I actually haven't purchased it yet. I'm going to because I'm curious to see how he prioritizes certain verbs. But certain verbs are just more important. I'm going to before we pass this, I'm going to give you one other parting idea because I gave you one idea of a verb that's only used in a limited way, significa. Here's another one. Here's another one. Funcionar.
Does it work? Yeah.
You don't need to memorize that for Joe.
No.
Sometimes
I
I don't.
function.
Sometimes I function and sometimes I don't. First to admit that. But you know
una
what?
cosa.
Yeah, and this is why the key was what's the use of that verb? Because the use we have for it determines which thing you should know. And the only thing you need to really know is funciona
Sí.
and maybe in the past.
Oh.
Funcionó. Maybe. Worked. Working now. Worked.
Mhm.
Functioned. And all the other conjugations, you don't need them. And you sure don't need nosotros. And you sure don't need tú. But you see my point. How we use that verb determines how many conjugations it's really worth making your brain commit something to memory. And where can you just say, we throw this out because it exists, but it is not going to serve a great purpose for my poor brain's matter, my poor gray matter in my brain. Okay, a ver. Vale, muy bien. La tarea para la semana que viene. Un cortometraje. Ustedes van a tener un cortometraje que es muy interesante. Es una historia, un cuento bastante corto. Creo que dura como 5 o 7 minutos, nada más. It will feel like kind of a fast level. So I will tell you with this cortometraje, this short feature film, you want to definitely watch it at least 3 times for a lot of you. Todo normal, totally normal. And turn on the subtitles, definitely, because it will sound fast, but you'll notice that you pick up a little more each time. Bueno, sí, esta historia del cortometraje en el vídeo es muy interesante. Tiene una idea ingeniosa. It's got an ingenious little idea. Es una gancha. It's got a hook. It's got a hook that's so cute it will make you chuckle. There are many cortometrajes I would love to give you, but you know what? Having had to study much Spanish and Latin American literature, there are many dark things out there. And sometimes you're in the mood for a dark story. And a lot of times, do you really want to be that depressed? Yeah. So I try to find things that are clever and genius, but perhaps not the dark side of human nature. And there's a real taste for that. Not just in our culture, but in theirs too. It's like, this is dark. Let's talk about this terrible thing. And I really don't want to saddle you guys with this. That's not always there's enough in life. It's bad enough. I don't need more. Okay, we've got that. Uy, ¿qué más? ¿Qué más? I'm going to put together your little table for you. Uy, ¿qué más? I would like you to check out that idea about I would like to rewatch the Barcelona video for sure. A ver. So yeah, kind of ponder that idea. Oh, you're going to get a list of questions talking about an actual activity. You may choose to mix up the verbs. It's going to be a series of prompts. It's going to be a series of like 5 or 6 questions. You'll see what they are in the email. And you may change the tenses you choose to use to talk about this este tema, this theme, depending to suit your needs. So when you see the questions, you may see kind of heavy duty pretérito, but when you explain things about this particular tema, this theme, you may choose to switch into different tenses, but it's going to be a very common verb that you use a lot, and you should be able to easily switch into a few different tenses to talk about this tema. So you'll get some ideas to prep, and we'll have people present their thoughts on this. It's kind of a shopping thing, but it's a more utility kind of shopping thing. So, fun. Okay. Vale. Sí. Todo bien. All good?
Okay, it's good.
Magnífico. Okay. Bueno, si hay temas de interés, por favor, díganme. Claro. Yeah. Feel free to send me in the email any themes, topics, stuff you want to touch on during the fall. We'll certainly try to incorporate as many of your ideas as you can. I'm already busily collecting other videos besides a really fun, cute, short one for this week. ¿Todo bien? All good?
Sí.
Yeah, see.
Todo bien.